My name is Rachel Chisholm. You are watching Aboriginal TV Channel 4, and with me now in the studio is members of the Narlis Ensemble who are performing their show Kimberley Echos here in Darwin this month. Thank you, gentlemen, so much for joining me in the studio.
Thank you.
Tos, can you please tell me how Kimberley Echos came to be? As we all know, this is a 5-year collaboration journey. And how did the first phone call start? Who called who? Who got the ball rolling?
Well, it's an even longer story, really, Rachel, than 5 years. It sort of goes back almost 12 years or longer when our organisation, Touring New Music, started doing work in the Kimberley, started taking up projects and doing things across the Kimberley, and met people like Stephen, sitting right here, Stephen Pigrim, and started collaborations between he and other artists. Of course, Stephen's been collaborating with all sorts of people, but more within the art music world that we occupy. And it's really grown out of that. All sorts of projects have happened across the Kimberley. And this one specifically started 5 years ago as a touring project with various ensemble members that have sort of gelled into this current group of people, but travelling right across the Kimberley, right out to remote communities, and collaborating with local artists and experiencing Jumbra and performing there for community, doing workshops in schools, etc. And this program's come about as a sort of impression or sort of influence inspired by the artist's experience of being there, and new works created, old songs sung and rearranged, and it's a really fantastic eclectic mix of celebration, really.
Yeah. Now, you said a mix of old songs. Do you mean your own individual works, Mark and Stephen, or do you mean songs from community and from country?
Yeah, well, like Tos said, when I hooked up with them a few years ago, basically I was doing my own songs, and because they brought up different kind of instrumentation, like cellos and flutes and violins and different percussionists, and I thought it interesting back then that it was good to play, well, some of the old songs I've been playing for years, to hear it in a different kind of arrangement, and that's what sort of started for me, the attachment to it. And then when we started touring the Kimberley, with visiting the kids and just playing in the communities, that was great to see their reaction to, the different kind of instrumentation. And so I've enjoyed it from that point of view. And this particular getting together every year of the ensemble is great, because I catch up with people like my bubbly Mark Atkins and the other players, and we sort of struck a kind of great kind of way of playing all our songs together.
Yeah.
Giving it a different. It's quite fresh all the time. You might think it would get a bit boring, but it's actually we sort of approach it from a kind of improvisational way.
It's almost jazz-like.
Yeah,
sometimes.
Well, jazz is a funny word, but I just like to call it fresh and in the moment,
Yeah.
Trying to interpret the song in the moment, Yeah. And I guess me and Mark, we hold down the lyric and the melody, because we're the songwriters in the group, but the other guys still write, but they're more instrumental type performance, you see. So, would you agree with that there, Bubbly?
Totally.
And Mark, what has this experience been, as Stephen was saying, hearing those old songs given a fresh perspective and a new spin?
No, well, it's,
some new stuff too,
yeah, I'm working on some new stuff now, but I mean, like what Steve was saying, you work your own material and you play it with your own, you have your own members and bands and that, and musicians, and then to hear it played again in a different light, with that instrumentation, it's good to hear. But along the way too, it's we're always sort of developing and experimenting in that, and so it's always sort of evolving, as well. And a lot of the influences and the stories and that come from the country and the people too. So I look forward to it every time. Yeah.
So you brought Kimberley Echos here last year to Darwin in the festival. What's different? What's special about this version of Kimberley Echos?
Well, there's probably not. Well, there are some new works. There are some new interpretations of the show in terms of someone that might have seen the show last year and this one. And of course, that was the start of a tour last year, and great to start it at Darwin Festival. But that was in the more traditional direction of our touring, which is westwards from here, back across the Kimberley and Bilborough last year. But this tour is actually taking the spirit of the Kimberley in the north eastwards. So after Darwin, we're heading down to the southeast, down to Sydney and Melbourne, Canberra and a few other towns. We just wanted to share our experiences and how we'd been inspired musically to that part of the world, and to give it a little window into the Kimberley, as it were. So I think the fact that we're doing that has already given it a sort of different flavour, as well as specifically on it. Well, we're also having quite a few guest artists as part of this tour. We're taking Gabriel Nadir from Warm and Gidger Elder down there to tell a story, down to Melbourne and Canberra. But here in Darwin, we've got a very special guest in Jimmy Edgar, Yarru Elder, singing a song in language. Stephen might want to talk about that a little bit, but that's a fantastic thing. So it's a new work of Jimmy telling the story with the ensemble performing with him.
Well, Stephen, yes, would you like to talk about some of the guest artists that are performing with you throughout your East Coast journey?
Well, Jimmy's not coming east with us, but he's in doing the Darwin one, and I guess this is a new thing for him. But he's been a long time. He's been playing music in the Broome Derby area since the 60s. So he's one of them sort of elder musicians. But we're bringing him into the kind of tour Narlis Ensemble way of doing things by creating a backing music backing while he's going to fuse this traditional song about the first contact in our area.
All right,
that happened in his father's part of the country, and we're trying to this is this thing of trying to bring old sort of songs or old stories into the modern day and tell the history through song. I mean, you can't find them in history books. Well, you can if you look hard enough, but they certainly don't teach them in schools. So doing it in song, I think, is a great way to get some of the early contact stories out there. So Jimmy will be performing that little song on Wednesday night at the entertainment centre.
That's a thought that just came into my head. Sharing those old songs and stories, and I imagine the kids that you encounter, are they blown away with some of the history that you bring with your concerts?
When you mean when we tour the Kimberley, I think it's more they're more fascinated by all the different instruments and seeing a bow being brushed on a string and making a big noise, big growling noise, which is great because some of them might want to take up that instrument rather than the old standard on electric guitar and drums. So it's kind of spreading the idea that you can also play a song or a thing and have much more. You can get much more out of it rather than just having to get up and dance to it all the time. I mean, that's all good too, but we're over the hill. We did all that rock and roll stuff.
Too tired.
We like to just
sit back and reflect.
We just like to do the story songs. Songs that kind of get the stories out there.
But what's been great is out of the touring program, we've been able to establish a residency program in Warman and Fitzroy and up the peninsula as well, where an artist go in for 6 weeks or more, and regularly over a few years period, over several years or more, and working with kids in schools and doing sort of instrumental programs and singing programs, but non-traditional, I mean non-European traditional. So like in Warman there's a violin program happening, but it's playing in sort of unconventional ways, and the kids are just dived into it full time and creating all this amazing music and sound work. So it's all sort of flowed out and interconnected with all these different programs.
That's great. I love the fact that kids are exploring things. I imagine remote communities discovering what a violin can do. You know, not just the bow and going at it, but pluck it, hit it with a tennis ball, just
Exactly.
make a noise. Yes, great. Well, Mark Atkins, Stephen Pigrim, and Tos Mahoney, thank you so much for coming into the studio and talking to us today.
Thanks, Rachel.
Thank you, Rachel.
So the Crocodile River, this is sort of continuing the journey up to Kimberley. Around Broome area we don't have that many crocodiles, but they're getting bigger. But but this is really written up right at the top, getting around Wyndham, and Territory people will know that this is really the real crocodile country. And so here we go, right? We're going to do it kind of did-you-rap Chuck Berry style today. You can come in on the side there. Okay.
The Sunday smell of pizza at Five Rivers Club tonight, shattered by a disco of red and blue lights. Hear the sirens wailing, the cops out on the tail of a busted Hilux pushing 50, trying to get away. 6 miles to the old town and a whole 6 back again. Maybe they'll run him out of fuel before they run him into jail. All the town is watching, it's on for young and old. This melodrama in Five Rivers, the car chase in slow-mo. He's up the Crocodile River on a moonless night, trying to shine a light on those red beady eyes. In a dinghy got no paddle on a turning tide, the mercy of a salty such is life. I used to spray the weed for the APB. Now Secret Agent Orange is investigating me. The Rainbow River take a bogey every night and bring home more than the pay to the darling wife. We're up the Crocodile River on a moonless night, trying to shine a light on those red beady eyes. The dinghy got no paddle on a turning tide, the mercy of a salty such is life. Tough. Who would right the wrong? Who was gonna fight? Who was gonna run? Are you gonna hold a candle? Are you gonna hold a gun? When there ain't no use in waking if your dreaming's done. We're up the Crocodile River on a moonless night, trying to shine a light on those red beady eyes. And a dinghy got no paddle on a turning tide, the mercy of a salty air. We're up the Crocodile River on a moonless night, trying to shine a light on those red beady eyes. A dinghy got no paddle on a turning tide, the mercy of a salty a really big one is one. Such is life.